Commodore Matthew Perry, a senior officer of the United States Navy, arrived in Japan with orders to push the country into opening trade relations. At the time, Japan still enforced strict laws that banned commerce and contact with foreigners. Perry argued these laws were outdated and demanded that the emperor reconsider them. On March 31, 1854, he signed the Treaty of Kanagawa on behalf of the United States, marking the beginning of Japan's opening to the outside world. And so began the race that would test a nation. This is Samurai Marathon. Communication soon became a problem. The Japanese ministry relied on a translator, but his interpretation created conflict when Perry was reported to have compared the Japanese people to wild animals. This insult angered the head of the ministry. The translator tried to explain himself directly to Perry, but no one understood him. One American soldier even mistook his words for Dutch rather than English. To strengthen his position, Perry presented gifts from America. He displayed telegraph equipment, photography technology, ammunition, and modern pistols. He also announced that his delegation would stay in Edo until the Treaty of Kanagawa was fully approved. The arrival of foreigners unsettled the daimyo. Chiang Shengming, the head of Annika, worried about the fate of his country. At the Ueno National Security Center, his daughter Zhu Ji showed him her paintings, one of which depicted a foreign ship. Shengming burned the painting, convinced that Western symbols were dangerous. Zhu Ji admired Western culture and dreamed of traveling to Edo to meet the Americans herself. Shengming, however, refused her request and instead arranged for her to marry his trusted samurai, Hirokata Hirojiro. The decision crushed her hopes, leaving her frustrated and torn between her father's authority and her desire to learn about the outside world. While Zhu Ji struggled with her confinement, another figure in Annika was quietly living a double life. Tang Zizhen, who served under Shengming as a samurai, was in truth a spy for the shogun. Trained since childhood by his father, he used his intelligence and strength to maintain a false identity as a finance officer. Outwardly, he appeared to live a quiet family life, carefully hiding his true skills to protect those around him. Shengming grew increasingly anxious about the presence of Americans. His fear disturbed his sleep and drove him to test his men. He ordered all his samurai to gather for a marathon, believing they had grown soft after more than 2 centuries without war. The race, he thought, would prove whether they were prepared to defend the country. Before the event, Zizhen secretly sent a report to the central government, warning them of suspicious preparations in Annika. When he later joined the gathering, he was shocked to find that Shengming had arranged only a 58-kilometer race with rewards for the winners. It was an endurance test, not a military plan.
口では和平を唱えておるが、遠足を取り行う。
Alarmed, Zizhen rushed to the post office to retrieve his letter, but it was too late. The message had already been sent, and guards blocked his attempt to stop it. He realized the misunderstanding would now cause consequences he could not control. At the same time, the gathering gave Zhu Ji an opportunity to escape her father's control. She cut her hair, disguised herself, and fled. By the riverbank, a wanderer tried to harass her, but she fought back and won. Shengming quickly ordered Hirojiro and 2 samurai to find her. During their search, they crossed paths with a wanderer who unknowingly handed them the clothes Zhu Ji had left behind. Realizing the truth, Hirojiro killed the man and returned the kimono to Shengming. Enraged at the sight of his daughter's garment, Shengming pressed on with the marathon, his fury simmering beneath the surface. Amid this growing tension, Hironoshin Usuji, the fastest samurai in Annika, received an invitation from a wealthy merchant. At the merchant's home, he was served a lavish meal and offered food for his family. The gesture, however, was not out of kindness but a bribe to make him lose against Hirojiro, the local leader's chosen son-in-law. Yet, despite their poverty, Hironoshin's family urged him to compete with honor and fight for victory in the coming race. At the same time, a boy named Yizu, who made a living gathering mushrooms, also dreamed of joining the marathon. He crossed paths with an old samurai named Kuretama, once a friend of his late father. After hearing Yizu's plan, Kuretama agreed to train him. Yizu later introduced Kuretama to his mother, and the meeting reminded the old warrior of the family life he had long been without. Not long after, a traveler appeared asking for food. This traveler was Zhu Ji in disguise. Kuretama felt something familiar about her, but Zhu Ji insisted she was only a poor wanderer seeking shelter before traveling to Edo. Kuretama doubted her story, since someone dressed so poorly would struggle to pass the border unnoticed. Meanwhile, Zizhen's secret letter arrived at the shogun's court. After reading it, the shogun suspected Shengming of planning rebellion. The suspicion was intensified by Japan's fragile state, following the recent decision to open trade with foreigners. Acting on the report, the shogun ordered an elite force led by Hayabusa to march against Aneka. The following day, in 1855, the marathon officially began. Samurai from across the region gathered to re-register. Among them was Zuji, using the false name Kano Nobuyuki to hide her identity. Kuretama and Yizu also signed up to compete. Zizhen prepared himself with full weapons, knowing his report might bring destruction to Aneka. Before his departure, his wife prayed for his safety, and he set out to join the race. The marathon started with the samurai running through dense forest, before reaching the open rice fields. Along the way, Ueki Yoshikuni, a finance officer, suddenly stopped, complaining of back pain and kidney trouble. He urged the others to continue without him. Once alone, he retrieved a hidden horse. Ueki was revealed to be a spy for the shogunate, and he rode off to meet the central troops advancing toward Aneka. On another path, Hirojiro began to tire quickly. With 2 attendants at his side, he took an easier route where water and a palanquin awaited. After resting, he forced his men to carry him until they rejoined the main road, eventually arriving at the first checkpoint on Aneka's border. Meanwhile, Zizhen, long thought to be just another samurai, began to grasp the gravity of his false report. Stationed at a checkpoint, he was ordered to search for Ueki, but on the road he witnessed the truth for himself. The central army was already advancing toward Aneka. Any chance of correcting the mistake was gone. When Zizhen tried to explain that his report was inaccurate, Ueki dismissed him. Ueki declared his loyalty to the shogun, insisting that the attack would continue even if it meant destroying their own land. As their argument escalated, Ueki challenged him. The 2 spies clashed. At first Zizhen hesitated, but Ueki's relentless strikes forced him to fight back. Drawing on the skills he had trained since childhood, Zizhen defeated Ueki. Victory brought no relief. He knew the attack could not be stopped, and he now had no choice but to join Shengming in defending Aneka. Elsewhere, several samurai reached the second rest station, where food and drink were provided. Hironoshin, known for his speed, tucked away some rations to bring home to his wife and child. Behind the others, Zuji arrived at the first checkpoint. The guards grew suspicious and uncovered her disguise. They realized she was Shengming's runaway daughter and placed her under arrest. Moments later, the shogun's troops reached the post. Hayabusa led the assault, overwhelming the guards in a swift attack. In the chaos, a gunshot rang out. Zuji tried to escape, but was struck in the back by Hayabusa's bullet. Despite the wound, she managed to slip away. At the riverside, Zizhen found her. He freed her from her restraints, removed the bullet, and treated her wound until she could stand again. Meanwhile, Hirojiro and his followers once more avoided the main route by taking a dangerous side path. The terrain nearly cost them when one follower slipped near a ravine. At that moment, Okashima, secretly a shogun spy, kicked the man to his death. Their ordeal continued inside a cave where a bear blocked the path. Forced to flee, they crossed a ravine on a rope bridge. As they did, Okashima cut the rope, sending Hirojiro into the river below. Swept away by the current, Hirojiro was carried downstream until he encountered Zizhen and Zuji. Zizhen told him the shogun's troops were preparing to strike Aneka. Realizing the danger, Hirojiro quickly called on the samurai to return and defend the castle. Zuji, though still weakened, insisted on going back as well, fearful for her father's safety. Along the way, Hirojiro caught Okashima speaking suspiciously with the others and executed him on the spot. The men were shocked, but Hirojiro declared him a traitor and pressed them to hurry, warning of a looming crisis at the castle. By the time they rushed back, Hayabusa had already arrived. Shengming greeted him with courtesy and even offered him tea, for Hayabusa was once from Aneka and had known him for years. Yet beneath the polite exchange lay his true purpose, to crush the samurai. He seized Shengming as a hostage, ensuring the warriors would be easier to defeat upon their return. At the border, the returning samurai found the guards slain by Hayabusa's men. Along the way, They were met by the cavalry, and a fierce battle erupted in the rice fields. Hirojiro arrived on horseback and fought alongside the samurai. Nearby, Zujin and Zuji saw Hirojiro being pursued by enemy riders. They quickly set a rope trap across the path, toppling the horses and scattering the soldiers. The three fought together and managed to defeat the remaining cavalry. Though Anika's warriors suffered heavy losses, they prevailed. The fallen were laid out with respect, and the survivors returned to the castle to see their families. Yet inside, Hayabusa still held Shengming hostage. When the samurai entered, Hayabusa stood ready with a gun. Zujin reacted first, hurling a knife that disrupted his aim. Castle servants unleashed a volley of arrows, followed by women charging with spears from different sides. In the chaos, Kojiro, Shengming's close servant, revealed his betrayal by attempting to stab his master. Zujin struck again, throwing a knife that stopped him before he could land the blow. With the threat ended, the families embraced their loved ones. That night, Kuretama and Yizu finally reached the castle, weary from the marathon. They paused by the rows of fallen shogun soldiers, bowed in respect, and then entered. Kuretama even stripped down to ease his movement after the long run. In front of everyone, Zujin confessed his true identity as a shogun spy. Overcome with guilt, he announced his intention to commit harakiri, begging only that his wife and child be spared punishment. His wife, stunned, realized for the first time that he had carried this burden in silence. As he raised the blade to end his life, Zuji stepped forward and pleaded with her father to stop him. She reminded Shengming that Zujin had once saved her and argued that he deserved a second chance. After heavy silence, Shengming relented. Rather than punishment, he ordered Zujin to return to Edo and continue his service. Zuji then asked to accompany him, determined to pursue her own path and discover the wider world. Not long after, Japan and the United States formally signed the Treaty of Kanagawa, opening the country to trade and diplomatic relations. The event was immortalized in an official painting, where Zuji appeared among the witnesses, securing her place in history. From that point on, the Anika Marathon was remembered as the beginning of Japan's long-distance running tradition. It later became an annual event and a lasting symbol of samurai endurance. The film ends. So the moral of the story is, never send letters before double-checking, never run a 58-kilometer marathon without snacks, and never trust a guy who offers you free food before a race.